All right, now moving on, let's talk about what's actually in this version of software. I hit on basically a little bit earlier when we talked about what was new in the software, fractional displays. The new setting in PDS preferences lets you choose whether you want to create or edit grading for delta and offset grading in decimal formats, which was what you were able to do in the past, or now you have the new option to be able to set it up in fractions. In the past, you were able to choose decimals and then choose the precision, whether you wanted to do it in no decimal precision places, no precision after the decimal point, one place, two places, three places after the decimal. Now you get to choose whether you want to work in decimals or in fractions, and then choose whether you want that format to be 16ths, 32nds, or 64ths. So keep this in mind whenever you're working in fractions. The AccuMark will simplify, for example, it will reduce that fraction. So for example, if you enter 32/64, we're going to simplify it down to a half. Okay, so let's take a look at how this works. I'm bringing a piece down into the work area, and I'm just going to show you very quickly. This is the option for whenever you're setting up grading. I'm just showing you now that whenever you looked at grading in the past, everything in decimal format was shown in decimals. But if I go into my preferences and I change it from decimal to fractions, and I'm choosing here 64ths just because I want to be a little bit more precise, give myself more of the flexibility to have a little bit more precision. Now, see all of my values here. Even though I chose 64ths, I have a mixture of values all the way up to 64ths. And what's really nice is because when I'm typing, I may be a little bit sloppy when I type, and I accidentally type a 63rd. The system understands that Patty was very sloppy when she typed, and she updated, and it changed from 63rds to 64ths because it understood that I was not a very good typist, that I really wanted to type in 64ths. But I can also here go in and type in maybe a half because that's really what I wanted to value there. And it's going to let me type that in as well. So it's up to a 64ths in precision. It also has the ability, just as in the past, whenever I'm actually doing my grading on screen, whenever you were working in decimal precision, where you could pick up your points and move the points and have that value reflected in my grid, same exact flexibility that I had in the past. I'm not losing any of my previous functionality. It's just how this information displays on the screen and how I'm able to enter these values in the grid. So I can do my functions such as rotating, any of the functionality that I was able to do before, any of my calculations, any of the things that I could do previously, I'm still able to do. I have all of that great functionality that the AccuMark is known for, but it's just how I actually am allowed to enter these values. That was going in and making modifications. Now I'm going to go in and do some creation here. So I'm picking a point, I'm going to go in and start creating grading. Now, remember that I had chose the setting that I was going to be working in fractions. What it will not allow me to do is it will not allow me to mix. So once I've made a commitment and I've committed to working in fractions, I'm only allowed to enter those values in fractional values. So I can enter a whole number, but I could not enter a decimal value. Okay. So I'm working with my fractional values, making any changes that I want to make. I can still, as I said, use all the functionality I was able to do in the past, so I can still work with my constant values. I can multiply, divide, subtract. All the things that I was able to do in the past is still valid. And one of the things I want to call attention to is the fact that even though I am working in fractional values on the screen, I'm displaying all that information on the screen in fractional values. Underneath, the actual computation that the system is using is still storing to disk in a decimal format. So I'm going to make a strong recommendation that once you make a commitment to how you're working, don't switch back and forth. You decide how you're going to work, and keep in mind that you make a commitment to it and you're going to work that way, and you're going to just move forward. Okay, so don't be switching back and forth. Make a commitment to working either in fractions or stay with your decimal format. That's fine, but just be aware that the system is storing that information underneath in decimal format, but it is allowing you to enter this information in fractions and working that way. Okay. All right. So that was our first big change for the system. Moving on, you have now the ability to identify your notches in PDS. Now, these are the PDS notches. This is not the notches that you set up on the notch table. These are the PDS notches. For example, your standard notch, the notch that has the reference point with the same location as the actual point, the reference notches, the tangent notches, and intersection notch. All those notches that you create in PDS can now have individual colors. So you have the ability to go in and mix and change colors for the individual notches that you create in PDS. Not your different 1 to 99 notches in the notch table, but the notches that you create in PDS. Okay? So you have different notch colors. Makes it much easier to identify the different types of notches that you're working with in PDS. Moving on, another new feature that we have, or improvement that we've actually made to bookmarks. In version 2024.1, we introduced the ability to measure bookmark pieces. And it was a great savings of time when you verify pieces. But some of the feedback that we received was that sometimes it was a little bit hard to actually select the line or the line segment, the part that you wanted whenever the lines were overlapping on a bookmark or the original piece, when that geometry was kind of laying on top of each other. So in this version, what we've done is we've provided a way for you to toggle on and off the individual elements. So the piece geometry or the bookmark, if you want to be able to turn on or off any of those individual components, for visual confirmation that you're really measuring the line that you meant to measure. Okay, so just as a reminder for those of you who may not have been working with the ability to measure bookmarks, measuring bookmarks allows you to measure the original bookmark or the defined bookmark and compare to, for example, the original geometry. You can measure straight between notches, measure the line length, and now what you have is the ability to see these floating color chips, and the colors that are defined there are the colors you see here on my screen. I have a black and a teal and a turquoise color. Those are all user definable colors here. The color chips are user defined in the preferences. So you can basically say that I want to filter out or toggle on or off a certain element so that I can get a better control over what I'm actually measuring. So let's take a look at what I'm talking about. Okay, I have something here to take a look at. All right, let's see what my colors are set up first at. Okay, so I've set it up so that you can see what my colors were defined as. And now I have a piece on the screen, and I'm going to make just a really quick modification to it. I'm just going to take the point here up the corner, and I'm going to do a slight modification. I'm just going to move that point very slightly. So now what I have is I have the original piece geometry and a modification that I made. And now when I look at the line length, I can see here very easily, if I take a look at those line lengths, well, it's easy to tell the original and the modified piece there on that particular line. But if I click on the line where it overlaps, what line am I really clicking on? So I can toggle on and off and see which line am I talking about. So I can turn here and toggle on and off which line am I looking at. Okay, I can verify that I really was looking at the line that I thought I was looking at. So very nice little way to verify that you really are on the line that you thought you were on. Okay, so the filter. Next, some of the other feedback that we received, and this is it's really great to be able to get feedback from the field, feedback from our customers through our customer success center, getting all this information through customer support teams. One of the things that people were asking about is being able to see, not just in PDS colors, but also to be able to actually see the fabric codes that you have in the actual models. If you take a look at this, what I have on the screen, in the model editor, I have set up, for example, this lady's blouse. I have the main fabric, and then I have a piece set up with the main fabric and a fusing fabric. I have a new selection in my PDS preferences that says I want to see the fabric code. So now when I open up a model in PDS and then turn on my piece info, I can see that I can have this, for example, this front. I have a model, the main fabric, and I have the color available in the main and the fusible fabric. So you can see the fabric code displayed on the pieces. Just, one of the things that I want to call out is, in this particular case, I just had a single character fabric code. If I had a longer fabric name, I would see the entire fabric name or fabric code spelled out there. This was just a brief one. Okay. And then a little bit more about more piece information that you can see. Previously in pattern design, when you opened up a piece and then you applied things like PDS shrink and stretch, and then took a look at it, you would see this little symbol that told you that you had shrink or stretch applied. And if you're like me, maybe you forgot how much that value was. We had a request from customers saying, it would be really nice to be able to tell what was that shrink or stretch value. Now, if you go into the piece properties and right-click on that piece and take a look at the piece properties, you'll be able to see the amount of shrink and stretch that was applied to that piece in PDS. And then also, if you take a look at the piece report, you'll be able to see with an additional field that was added into the piece reports, the PDS shrink and stretch that was applied. Okay. So a little bit more information. And then moving on, in PDS, some of the enhancements that we've made to PDS annotation. Whenever you're taking a look at your PDS annotation, the custom character size now is maintained from prior entries. Whenever you set up your PDS custom annotation, in the past, what was happening is it was just maintaining the plot preference size. Now, if you set up a custom size, it will maintain that size the next time you open the dialog box. It won't default back to your plot preference size. We also have added another checkbox here to sort the annotation. So right now, what happens is whenever you're adding annotation to the annotation library, it keeps it in the annotation library in whatever order you actually typed it in. So if you're like me and you type it in the order that occurs to you or you think about it, it's sometimes hard to find an entry if you have a lot of entries and it goes way down the page. So now you can sort them alphabetically or alphanumerically. And then also, if you are sorting or you're taking entries and you're grabbing like 3 or 4 different entries and you're putting them all on one piece, you can, instead of having them go side by side, which was something that happened to me a lot, where they would kind of just like run all next to each other, and I'd have to go in and go back and make edits to it over on the add annotation box. You can now have them placed on separate lines, so one below each other whenever you're selecting them. So let's take a look here at that. All right. Now I'm going to just add annotation to my piece. And notice it just happens to be in whatever order I typed it in. And if I click on sorted annotations, it will sort my annotations alphabetically. And then if you notice, when I said alphanumeric, the seams were kind of also sorted down, so my different seam amounts were sorted for me as well. And I do place one after the other. If I clicked on that in just a minute, it's going to fix it for me so that I don't have to do what I had to do in the past, where I would have to do the carriage return. Notice that. I'm going to get rid of it and then do the checkbox. select it again, and make it go back over there. So then I don't have to do the enter key afterwards. Okay. And now it's placed there. It's really helpful if I've done like maybe 6 or 7 different selections and didn't have to remember that I needed to press the enter key after every single one. Now, whenever you're doing annotation online, notice that it remembers that you don't have you have the ability to add just one line of annotation, so it takes away that selection. It knows exactly what it needs to have for that. I can put the annotation inside the piece or outside the piece if you remember that. I'm going to do a little bit of extra ease there. And now I'm thinking about how big do I want that annotation. I'm going to say maybe I only wanted 1/4 of an inch, and then I take a look at it and realize, oh, that's just way too small. I'm going to go in, I'm going to make an edit to it. Maybe enlarge it. When I come back in, it remembers. In the past, it would maybe did not remember that. Now it remembers that I need to keep that 3/4 of an inch. Okay. And then I can sort my annotation. Okay. And then if I unsort it, it'll go back to whatever order it was that I typed it in originally. Okay. Next, whenever you're making selections, for example, when you're importing files, the first file type in the list is no longer automatically the first file type. It will remember whatever the file type was that you last used. So for example, if standard DXF is the most common file type that I use, the next time I go in and choose a file to import, it will maintain that file type from my previous use. Okay. Now, moving on out of PDS and into another area of the system, we have now the ability to create and save default colors for bundle groups. Now we've moved out of PDS and into the model editor. For those of you who are not remembering what exactly bundle groups were or haven't used bundle groups, I'm just going to give you a quick reminder of what that is. Bundle groups are not new to this release, but the ability to define and save your default colors is new to this release. What happened in previous releases is you could define a color and set it up and save it with a model, and then the next time you went in and created a new model, it defaulted back to the system colors that it wanted to use for the different bundle groups. So if you always used bundle A, B, C, D, bundle group A, B, C, D, for example, and then the next time you created a new model and you used those same bundle groups, it went back to the system default colors. Now you have the ability to, for example, set up your own A, B, C, D colors, save those custom colors, and then the next time you use the same bundle group code, you can have those reused. Okay, so for example, in this case, I used this pretty blue color and maybe a nice rust color, and those will be my colors. So the next time I use those same bundle groups, the colors will default to those when I create a new model with those same bundle groups. Okay. Now, if you don't remember what bundle groups are, this was something that was introduced back in 2021 in version 14.1. And bundle groups are a way that you can group pieces together or parts together and say that they're going to be traveling through production. Maybe they're going to go together into a work cell or some sort of operational group. Maybe they all need to have a special operation performed on them. Maybe they're not part of a bundle itself. Maybe they're not part of one model or something, but they all have to have a certain operation performed on them. So they need to have special sewing operation performed, or they need to have a certain foam application performed to them. So you're grouping these pieces together to either put them in a certain location in the factory or a certain work cell. So you can group these together and they can have that color consistency performed. We have this example of a work cart. Maybe you have these pieces that you want to put together all the way from the time you create the model through marker making into the cutting room, and then maybe from the cutting room into picking up off the cutter, putting them onto a work cart, and then sending them out into the production floor for some sort of special operation. So those colors now can be defined in the model, remembered on the next model that you create using the same colors, and then carried all the way through production. Okay, and as I said, concept of bundle colors is not new to this version, but the idea that you can create and keep those bundle colors that you've created from one model to the next is the new concept. Okay. And then moving on finally to talking about another thing that we added in this version is the ability to plot a marker PDF file. Now, we've had the ability to create the marker plot PDF file, not a digital print file. This is different. This is the marker plot file. We have the ability to create that marker plot PDF file. But what's new in this version is now you can go into, for example, WinPlot and select that PDF file and send it to the plotter, for example, to your production plotter. So you can send that file, and this is what I'm talking about, this PDF file directly to your plotter. Okay. So with that, I'm going to talk to you about what do you want to do if you want to